Somewhere along the way, you became a spectator of your own life. You didn't decide to. There was no moment where you chose to step back behind the glass and watch instead of live. It happened slowly, the way the light leaves a room in the evening, imperceptibly, until suddenly you notice it's dark and you can't remember when that started. And now, here you are, on the other side of a pane of glass you can't quite see, watching your days move past you like scenes in a film about someone who looks exactly like you, but isn't quite you anymore. Carl Jung spent years studying people trapped in exactly this state, and what he found was that it isn't laziness, and it isn't depression in the ordinary sense. It's a specific psychological condition, a person who has quietly withdrawn their presence from their own existence while continuing, on the surface, to function. They go to work, they answer texts, they show up to the birthday dinners, and the whole time, some essential part of them is standing off to the side, arms folded, watching it all happen to a body they're only loosely attached to. Jung had a name for this. He called it the provisional life. The life lived as a rehearsal for some real life that's always about to begin but never quite does. And today I want to walk you through what he understood about how we slip into this state, why it feels so much safer than actually being here, what it's silently costing you every single day you stay behind the glass, and what it actually takes to step through it and start participating in your own existence again before more of it slips past unlived. Let me start with what the provisional life actually feels like from the inside, because most people are living it without having a word for it. You wake up and you move through the motions of a day, and it all works. Nothing is technically wrong. But there's a strange flatness to it, like you're operating your life by remote control from a room down the hall. Decisions get made, but you don't quite feel yourself making them. Time passes, but you couldn't tell someone what you did with it. Whole weeks disappear into a fog of maintenance, errands, obligations, scrolling, sleeping, and you emerge on the other side wondering where you were the whole time. Jung recognized that people in this state share a particular relationship with the future. They're always waiting until they finish this degree, until the kids are older, until they've saved enough, until they feel ready, until the timing is right, until they've figured themselves out. The real life, the one where they'll finally show up fully and commit and take the risks and become who they're meant to be, that life is always scheduled for later. And later never comes, because later isn't a time. It's a psychological hiding place. What made this so fascinating to Jung was that the person in the provisional life genuinely believes they're being responsible. They think they're being patient, mature, sensible. They're not throwing their life away on reckless impulses. They're waiting for the right moment. But underneath that reasonable-sounding story, something much more revealing is happening. They're avoiding the one thing that actually makes a life feel like yours, the act of committing to it fully, without a guarantee that it'll work out. Because that's the thing about being a spectator. It's safe. When you're watching your life instead of living it, you can't really fail at it. You can't be wrong because you never fully chose. You can't be devastated because you never fully invested. The glass protects you from the sharp edges of genuine participation, the risk of loving someone who might leave, of building something that might collapse, of becoming someone who might be rejected. Behind the glass, you stay clean, untouched, and slowly, without ever intending to, you starve. Jung understood that this withdrawal usually begins as a survival strategy, and often a completely justified one. Think about a child who grew up in a house where being fully present was dangerous, where showing up with your real feelings, your real wants, your real self got you punished, ignored, or used. That child learned something very early. It's safer to watch than to participate, safer to read the room than to enter it, safer to keep some essential part of yourself back behind the glass, where nobody can reach it, where it can't be hurt, and it works. For a child in that environment, the retreat into spectatorship is genius. It preserves something precious in the middle of a situation that would otherwise consume it. The problem is that the strategy doesn't come with an expiration date. Nobody tells you, at 25 or 35 or 50, that the danger has passed and you can come out now. So you keep living behind the glass long after the thing you were hiding from is gone. You're protecting a self that no longer needs protecting, from a threat that no longer exists, at the cost of the only life you'll ever get. This is the cruel mechanism at the heart of it. The very thing that saved you becomes the thing that's slowly suffocating you. And because it once felt like life or death, letting go of it feels like life or death too, even though the actual stakes have completely reversed. What used to keep you alive is now keeping you from living. Jung saw this pattern everywhere, and he understood how monstrously difficult it is to release a survival strategy that your nervous system still believes is the only thing standing between you and annihilation. There's another way the provisional life takes hold, and it's more common than the trauma route, though the two often braid together. It comes from a fantasy of unlimited potential. Jung wrote about a certain kind of person who is so attached to the idea of who they could become that they can never commit to actually becoming anyone. Because the moment you commit, the moment you choose this career, this partner, this city, this life, you kill off every other version of yourself. All the parallel lives, all the shimmering possibilities, all the people you might have been. Choosing is a kind of amputation. And some people would rather keep all their limbs and never walk anywhere than choose one direction and lose the others. So they stay provisional. They keep their options open forever. They dabble. They keep one foot out of every door. They never fully move to the city, never fully commit to the relationship, never fully throw themselves into the work, because full commitment would mean giving up the intoxicating dream of everything they could still theoretically be. And they mistake this for freedom. They think keeping their options open is the same as being free. Jung understood it was the opposite. A person with infinite options and no commitments isn't free. They're paralyzed. They're standing in the middle of a field with 1,000 paths and taking none of them, mistaking the vastness of the field for a life. Here's what that costs, and it's the part almost nobody sees until it's very late. Real depth only comes from commitment. A relationship becomes profound only when you stop keeping the exit in view and let yourself be fully in it. A craft becomes mastery only when you commit to it long enough to move through the boring middle where most people quit. A life becomes meaningful only when you stop treating it as a rehearsal and start treating it as the actual performance. The person keeping all their options open never gets any of this. They get breadth without depth, potential without fruit, a wide, shallow puddle where there could have been a well. And time, of course, is the thing the provisional life can't account for. Because the whole strategy depends on the belief that there's still plenty of time, that the real life can start later, that later is still coming, that you haven't spent anything yet by waiting. But you have. Every day behind the glass is a day gone. The provisional life is quietly, constantly expensive, and it bills you in the only currency you can't earn back. Jung saw people arrive in his consulting room in their 50s and 60s, suddenly waking up to the horror that the life they were always going to live had been happening the whole time, and they'd watched most of it go by from behind the glass, waiting for it to start. I want you to notice something, though. If you're recognizing yourself in any of this, if there's a part of you that's been standing off to the side of your own existence, the fact that you can feel it is enormously significant. Most people never do. Most people live and die behind the glass without ever once suspecting there was a glass at all. The very discomfort you might be feeling right now, that restless sense that you've been absent from your own days, is the first thing that ever cracks the spectator open. It's your own life reaching for you. It's the part of you that never fully agreed to the exile beginning to knock. Jung believed this knocking was the single most important sound in the human psyche. He called the deeper process behind it individuation, the slow, lifelong movement toward becoming the specific, whole, unrepeatable person you actually are, rather than the diminished, provisional version you settled for. And the strange thing about individuation is that it can't happen behind the glass. It requires participation. It requires you to enter your life, make real choices, face real consequences, and let the results shape you. You cannot become yourself as a spectator. You can only become yourself in the arena, taking the hits, making the mess, doing the actual living. This is where it starts to get genuinely difficult, because the arena is exactly what you retreated from in the first place. And your whole system has spent years, maybe decades, becoming an expert at staying out of it. You've built a life that lets you feel like you're participating while keeping the glass firmly in place. You have relationships that never quite reach real intimacy, work that never quite demands the whole of you, routines that keep you occupied enough to never notice how absent you are. The provisional life is not empty. That's what makes it so hard to escape. It's full. It's just full of things that keep you from being present, arranged so cleverly that the arrangement looks like a life. If any of this is landing somewhere real in you, if you're starting to see the outline of the glass you've been living behind, this might be the moment to do something more than just recognize it. We put together a guide called True Self-Discovery, 24 reflection exercises drawn from Jung's work, and they're built for exactly this. For the person who's begun to sense their own absence and wants a way to start knocking back. Not a program that promises to fix you overnight, but a set of honest questions designed to help you locate where you've been hiding and take the first real steps toward showing up. The link is right below. But stay with me, because the most important part of this is still ahead. Let me tell you what participation actually requires, because I don't want to hand you a soft, comfortable version of this. Stepping through the glass is not gentle. Jung never pretended it was. The first thing that happens when you start to genuinely participate in your own life is that you lose your protection. The glass wasn't just a barrier keeping you out of your life, it was armor keeping your life out of you. And when it comes down, everything gets in. The joy, yes, but also the fear you've been holding at arm's length, the disappointment you've been outrunning, the vulnerability you've spent your whole life avoiding. To participate is to be reachable, and being reachable means being hurtable. Picture someone who has kept every relationship at a careful distance for 20 years. They're friendly, likable, present enough to pass, but nobody has ever actually gotten to them, because getting to them was never allowed. Now imagine that person deciding, finally, to let someone in, to be fully known by another human being, with all the risk that carries. The terror of that is not small, because the moment you're truly known, you can be truly rejected. The moment you truly love, you can truly lose. The glass kept them safe from all of it, and stepping out from behind it means volunteering for the exact exposure they organized their entire life to avoid. This is why so many people, when they get right up to the edge of participation, retreat. They feel the exposure and it's too much, and they scramble back behind the glass where it's safe and dead and familiar. Jung watched this happen constantly, and he understood it wasn't weakness. It was the pull of the old survival strategy, roaring back to life the instant its authority was threatened. The part of you that learned to hide will fight ferociously to keep hiding, because as far as it knows, hiding is the reason you're still alive. It cannot tell the difference between the danger of the past and the discomfort of the present. To it, they feel identical. So participation requires you to do something that feels almost insane. It requires you to move toward the exact thing your system is screaming at you to avoid. To stay in the room when everything in you wants to retreat behind the glass. To make the real choice, say the real thing, let yourself be seen in the real way, while your whole nervous system floods with the old alarm. This is why it can't be done through willpower alone, and it can't be done all at once. It's done in increments, one real moment, then another. Each time you stay present when you'd normally disappear, you teach the frightened part of yourself something new. That presence didn't kill you, that the arena this time was survivable. And here's what Jung noticed about people who did this work, who kept choosing participation over spectatorship in small, repeated acts of courage. Something began to come back to life in them that they'd forgotten they had. Vitality. The actual felt sense of being alive, of being here, of their existence belonging to them. Because the glass didn't just keep out the pain, it dimmed everything. When you numb yourself to disappointment, you numb yourself to delight in the same motion. When you protect yourself from loss, you lock yourself away from love. The spectator doesn't just avoid the lows, they flatten the whole range of what it's possible to feel, and they call that flatness peace, when really, it's just distance. The person who steps through the glass discovers that they feel more of everything. The lows hit harder, it's true. Real participation means real stakes, and real stakes mean real disappointment when things don't go your way. But the highs are unrecognizable compared to anything the spectator ever knew. There's a texture to a joy you're actually present for, a richness to a moment you're not watching from a distance, but living from the inside, that the provisional life can't manufacture no matter how safe it keeps you. Jung believed this was the whole point, that a life fully participated in, with all its risk and pain, is incomparably more alive than a life watched safely from behind glass. There's a psychological death involved in this, and I want to name it honestly. To start participating in your life, you have to let the spectator die. That watchful, protected, uncommitted version of yourself. The one who kept the exits in view, who never fully chose, who stayed clean by staying out. That self has to go. And it will resist. It's been in charge for a long time. It has convinced you that it's the wise one, the careful one, the one keeping you safe. Letting it die feels like losing your protector, and in a sense it is. You're choosing to live without the armor you've depended on for as long as you can remember. But Jung would point out something the spectator can never see about itself. That watchful, uncommitted self was never actually keeping you safe. It was keeping you absent. And absence is its own kind of death. A slower, quieter one that doesn't announce itself, that lets you keep breathing while the life drains out of your days. The person who stays behind the glass isn't preserving their life. They're embalming it, keeping it intact and untouched and completely without pulse. When you let the spectator die, you're not losing your life. You're trading a preserved corpse for a beating heart, and the beating heart is going to hurt sometimes, and that hurt is the price and the proof of being alive. Let me be concrete about what stepping through the glass actually looks like, because it's less dramatic than you might think. It's rarely one grand gesture. It's 1,000 small refusals to disappear. It's saying what you actually think in a conversation instead of the safe, agreeable version. It's letting yourself want something out loud and going after it, even clumsily, instead of protecting yourself with pretend indifference. It's committing to the relationship, or the work, or the place, fully. Both feet in, no exit in view, and letting yourself be shaped by that commitment instead of hovering above it. It's showing up to your own days as a participant rather than an observer, again and again, until participation stops feeling like a foreign country and starts feeling like home. It's also, crucially, about choosing. The spectator's deepest habit is non-choice, keeping everything open, deciding nothing, letting the current carry them so they never have to be responsible for a direction. To participate is to choose, knowingly, accepting that every choice closes doors. You will never be the person who took the other path, and you have to make peace with that. Jung understood that the refusal to grieve the roads not taken is one of the main things that keeps people provisional forever. The person who can't bear to lose any possibility ends up living none of them. The person who can choose one path fully and let the others go gets to actually walk somewhere. There's a particular kind of person Jung worried about most in this regard, the one who has enormous gifts and never commits to any of them. Talented at many things, master of none, always about to begin, always saving themselves for the real effort that never arrives. From the outside, they look full of potential. From the inside, they're haunted, because some part of them knows they're squandering something. The tragedy isn't that they lack ability, it's that they can't bear to commit their ability to anything real, because committing means risking failure, and failure would threaten the beautiful fantasy of what they could have done if they'd only tried. So they never try, and they die full of unused gifts, having watched their own potential from behind the glass their entire lives. If that lands somewhere uncomfortable, sit with the discomfort for a second instead of turning away from it. Because that reflex, to turn away, to disappear, to retreat behind the glass the instant something gets too real, is the exact thing keeping you provisional. And the willingness to stay, to let the discomfort reach you, to not flinch away from the truth about your own absence, is the exact muscle that participation is built from. Every time you stay in contact with something real instead of numbing it or fleeing it, You're practicing being alive. The discomfort you're feeling isn't a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that you're actually here for once, and being here is unfamiliar. Jung wrote that the greatest tragedies happen not from dramatic external catastrophe, but from the slow refusal to live. From the accumulated weight of all the days a person spent waiting, watching, staying safe, keeping their options open, until the options ran out and the waiting was all there ever was. He saw this as the deepest form of self-betrayal, not the loud, obvious kind, but the quiet kind, where you slowly abandon your own life without ever making a single decision to do so. It's the most common tragedy in the world, and almost nobody recognizes it as tragedy, because from the outside it looks like a perfectly normal, functional, unremarkable life. But you have an advantage that most people never get. You can feel the glass. You know it's there. That awareness is not a small thing. It's the crack that everything else grows from. The person who doesn't know they're absent can never come back. The person who feels their own absence, who aches at it, who reads something like this and recognizes themselves in it, that person is already halfway through the glass. The recognition is the beginning of the return. All that's left is to keep choosing it, in small, real moments, until the choosing becomes a life. If you followed this all the way here, you're clearly not content to keep watching from the sidelines. Some part of you is done being a spectator. That's exactly the part our guide, True Self-Discovery, was built to reach. Its 24 reflection exercises are designed to help you find the specific places you've been hiding, name what the glass has been protecting you from, and take deliberate steps back into your own life. It's rooted in the same Jungian understanding we've been sitting with, that you become yourself only by participating, never by waiting. If you're ready to stop rehearsing and start living, you'll find it linked right below. I want to leave you with the truth Jung kept returning to at the end of his long study of the human soul. He believed that every person carries within them a life that is theirs to live, a specific, unrepeatable existence that only they can bring into being. And he believed that the great question of a human life is whether you will actually live it, or whether you will spend your years watching it from a safe distance, waiting for a permission that never comes, protecting a self that no longer needs protecting, until the time runs out, and the life you were always going to live turns out to be the life you never lived at all. The provisional life ends the day you decide it's not a rehearsal, that there is no later, that the real life you've been waiting for is the ordinary Tuesday you're standing in right now, and the only question is whether you'll show up for it. Nobody is coming to tell you it's safe to come out from behind the glass. The danger you were hiding from is long gone, but no announcement will ever be made. You have to decide for yourself that the exile is over, and then you have to prove it, one present moment at a time, by staying in your own life when everything in you wants to slip away. You've watched enough, you've waited long enough. You already know how it feels to move through your days as a ghost in your own house. And you already know, somewhere underneath the numbness, that you were never meant to live that way. The glass was always thinner than it seemed. It was never actually keeping you safe. It was only keeping you out. And you can step through it whenever you decide to, not in some perfect future when you finally feel ready, but now, clumsily, afraid, fully alive, in the only life you were ever given. So here's the only question that matters, and it's yours to answer with how you live the next hour, the next conversation, the next choice you'd normally disappear from. Are you going to keep watching? Or is it finally time to walk out from behind the glass and start participating in the life that's been waiting on the other side for you this whole time, living itself without you, hoping you'll finally come home? If you haven't yet, take a look at our guide, True Self-Discovery, 24 reflection exercises rooted in Jung's work, made for exactly this moment of stepping back into your own life. A way to stop watching and start participating, one honest question at a time. You'll find the link right below.